Welcome to Hero Club. I'm Nick Williams.
And I am George Primavera.
George and I have been playing D&D together for years.
Now, a lot of people think you need to be a big, huge nerd boy to play Dungeons & Dragons.
But in reality, you just have to be willing to spend 4 hours of your own time on a weekday trashed on cheap beer cross-legged around a coffee table.
I lost a game of Flip Cup in 2012, so I had to buy all the books and learn how to be Dungeon Master. My dad was disappointed.
Yeah, he was. But after a game or two, we realized that it's actually a really fun and effective way to tell an awesome story.
Yeah, it's like long-form improv, but you kill more people.
Here's what you need to know. George creates a world and the framework for a cool story.
And the players, like Nick, create characters beforehand, all with special abilities, sometimes magical, sometimes not, and they adventure through the story as best they can, trying not to die.
We, the players, roll dice to see if our improvised actions fail or succeed, trying to beat a number in George's head that he promises he doesn't change at will.
But at the table, I am God, my game, my rules.
Okay, so it's as nerdy as you thought. You know what? Just fuck off, man.
Whoa, okay.
Fuck right off,
All right,
okay?
Nick, maybe don't tell everybody to F off. And it's not that nerdy. I mean, we get rid of all that stupid math, and we add music and sound effects and stuff like that, so, you know, it's cool.
Anyway, these stories do follow a linear plot, so if you want to know what's going on, start at the beginning of any season you like, and have fun with it.
Without further ado,
welcome to Hero Club! Yeah!
Samuel 16:5. Get lost, you butcher, you hellhound. God has paid you back for all your dirty work.
the cultists are all dispersing. They're gathering their candles, doffing their humble vestments as Lucifer disappears up and out of the valley. This ceremony is decidedly over. Having apparently missed his time window to complete a sinister ritual, Lucifer instructed his flock to pack up and move to a different location, citing some cryptic reason involving planetary alignment, and sent the immobilized floating bodies of Elias, Ember, and Jeremiah off with the man called Trunk, so as to be prepared for a second attempt at the ceremony. Lucifer needed a priest to complete whatever dark sacrament was underway, and after our heroes removed the clergyman he had obtained from the equation a few minutes earlier, he has chosen Elias and company as a replacement. Your three floating bodies follow Trunk's massive frame out of the valley, following a general procession away from the abandoned ceremonial site. Still unable to move or speak, Trunk leads you three on a suddenly diverging path away from the congregating cultists, who you can see are loading various things onto a train wagon, all led by midnight black horses. Lucifer is nowhere to be found. But finally, as the crowd disappears around the corner of the outer slope of the valley, you reach a large, crudely put together cart with several massive cages nailed into the bed of the cart. As your bodies come to a gradual halt, Trunk takes you each individually with massive garbage can lid hands and bodily tosses you in, slamming the door behind you. Your bodies slowly begin to regain feeling, your mouths and jaws still so extremely tense that they're unable to move freely, and Trunk finally doffs his cloak's hood and reveals his face for the first time.
Trunk is 7'5", 280 pounds. He has unkempt hair, an unkempt beard, and a large furrowed unibrow. His skin is cracked and his nose is bulbous. He has large yellow teeth that sit on a crossbite. He doesn't wear shoes on account of everything being too small for him.
His mouth spreads wide into a big grin again, and as he looks at all of you, struggling to regain the feeling in all your bodies, trying to sit up against the walls of these cages, he takes something out of his pocket, twists off the top of it, almost like it's a water bottle or something like that, and then strikes a match and lights the object on fire. It starts to burn like tobacco in a pipe, cherrying into a red ember that starts to emit a billowy smoke, and he places it in the middle of the cage.
Sleep. It's a long ride.
Then he throws a big, thick black cloth over it that shields you from any moonlight and traps the smoke inside the cage. Slowly, giggling more and more, through clenched jaws, you all lose consciousness. Eventually, you all come to with your eyes still shut. The only thing you're really able to remember about the journey are the bumps in the road that particularly didn't feel good. Now you notice that crickets are chirping all around you, but they're muffled somehow. As you slowly peel your eyes open, you see that you're still in your cages, but now the cages are on the ground of a dark, wet swamp. The bright full moon reflects off the marsh waters ominously as clouds of mist hover over the water's surface. The grass is tall, has a sweet, rotting smell to it. And you see Trunk, standing with his back to you. He's flanked by a couple of men holding trays. On each tray, an array of oddly shaped cutlery. Trunk's giant axe rests against the table as he sharpens a particularly gnarled meat cleaver on a strip of leather. The two men that you can see, standing on either side of Trunk, have intricate patterns of scabs all along their face and on any bits of the arm that are exposed from their shirts. They're looking up at Trunk with a fervent adoration and will once in a while glance to the three of you with an almost thirsty anticipation. Trunk gets one more good sharpening swipe with the belt of leather, slams the cleaver into the wooden table, and quickly whips around to face you. But now he's dressed a little different.
Trunk is wearing a series of furs, all stitched together from his shoulders down to his feet. Fancy in the way that they are, but still covered in the blood and shit of the animals that he'd killed.
So you're a man of God.
That's right.
Do you lead?
The Lord is my shepherd. He leads us all.
I ain't talking about no religious folk. I'm talking about your party. Do you lead?
No. Yes. God leads. Yes. Him. And Elias looks straight over to Jeremiah.
Jeremiah shoots a burning look back at Elias and then straightens himself up to as imposing as he can make himself. Yes, I have been known to lead, you repugnant troglodyte, and I do wish that you would fucking touch me so that I may cut your dick off where you stand, and that is all I have to say on that score.
If you like your muscles still attached to your body, I'd watch your tongue. Samson.
You look over to the marshy waters, and suddenly they tremble as if a giant footfall has shaken the ground. Then the water begins to bubble a bit, and then it seems as if it's being disturbed from underneath. And then very slowly, a big black nose about the size of a basketball. A snout follows, two sheer white eyes, and then thick, wet ribbons of hair slopping off the body of a dog the size of a horse. Samson pads over to you, shaking water wildly from his mane, coughs a bit into the dirt, and a full human skull drops onto the ground and rolls away. Breathing heavily, the dog pads its way forward and sits just behind Trunk, obedient, deathly still, and just about Trunk's height.
Now I'm gonna make this real simple. I'm gonna choose one of you, and you're gonna be mine. So I'll ask again, which one of you leads?
Trunk leaves the meat cleaver on the table and walks to the back of the cart. He shifts his weight as he lifts the two bodies of Dale and Franklin. He throws them across the marsh as Samson follows.
As Samson turns and stalks away, thick droplets of saliva impact into the wet swamp floor. He picks up first Dale in his jaw, throws him backward a little bit, then picks up Franklin in his jaw as well, and disappears underwater back into the marsh.
Trunk looks back at the group.
If you don't decide, I will.
Trunk turns back to the table, pulls the meat cleaver out, and continues to sharpen it as his two carved-up acolytes step into the cage. Your muscles still tense, you realize that you're bound, and they strap thick leather masks over your head that have giant bulbs at the end, almost like a mule feeder, but a little bit skinnier, so sort of resembling a plague doctor's mask, but a big cylinder. And then they go to the ends of each mask, strike matches, and slowly you begin to inhale gas directly into your mouth. The world begins to spin as one of the two men leans down, pulls out a very small knife, and begins to tap you, Elias, on the nose with it.
He's gonna make you so pretty. You're gonna be a beautiful canvas for him to work with.
I'm gonna lick 'em.
Well, you gotta wait till they're well seasoned. When they start tasting like copper, that's when it's best to do the licking.
You know Trunk hates waiting. Let's just have at it.
No, he was very specific this time around. Can't touch him up too much.
What about the other two? He doesn't seem to have his eyes on them. I could just make a quick...
I think that'd be alright.
and then you go unconscious. Time obviously passes, though you can't really feel how much, but as you become fully aware of your surroundings, you realize that your location has changed again. Now you're in a shed. It's very dark in here. You're all tied to chairs facing each other, and the masks have been removed. Your hands are all bound behind you. However, Jeremiah and Ember, as you look down at your arms, you see several foot-long cuts stretching from your shoulders down to your wrists that appear to already be scabbing over. And you feel searing pain as your brain registers the injuries to your limbs, and you also feel a weird heat, as it would appear that the lacerations are already becoming infected. It would appear these two men did have a little bit of fun with you while you were unconscious.
Oh, they are gonna feel the end of a knife tonight.
If you were my governor, I'd vote for you.
So, who's the leader?
Well, let me start this statement off by saying that I am very much not afraid of those men. However, as my services have been exchanged for hard currency by you, I am technically in your employ, and that would lead me to believe that you are in fact the leader, oh holiest of bosses.
I hate to break it to you, Elias, but unless you can get the big white bearded man that sits in a chair down here, he's got a point.
Now there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, Elias. We each got our shake. It's time for you to take your turn.
The door explodes open.
Trunk enters, his men follow, and Samson drags the top half of Dale's body as his entrails drip onto the floor. Trunk notices a bloodied knife on the ground. He picks it up and turns to his men.
Y'all started without me.
Well, we did. We couldn't help ourselves. That just looks so good.
You're a painter and an artist, and we did not mean to
Think of the cuts as primer for your beautiful walls that your mural that you will create.
Yes, we were just the first coat.
Trunk turns to the three of them.
Eeny, meeny, miny.
Elias pipes up. It's me. I'm the leader.
Well, looks like you're gonna be coming with me, boy.
Trunk walks over to Elias, grabs him by his arm ties, and throws him over his shoulder.
Say goodbye to your friends.
And Trunk and Elias disappear into the swamp. Samson gives one more look at both Ember and Jeremiah, licks his chops, and then pulls that top half of the body out with him as he also leaves. The door slams shut, and Jeremiah and Ember are left alone in the darkness.
What the fuck do we do now?
Well, Miss Ember, the way I see it is we probably have about 5 minutes before he starts screaming like a little schoolgirl. We're gonna want to start fixing on getting the fuck out of here.
I'd say 5 minutes is a little generous, but overall, I agree with your statement. How do you go about fixing to do that?
Fortunately, being in my line of work, I have been in this situation many a time before.
You mean tied up?
I mean literally this exact situation. And Jeremiah goes to dislocate his thumb to pull his hands free of his binding.
Can you make a survival check for me, please?
16. Jeremiah pulls his hands free and begins to untie himself.
A couple seconds later, he is untied.
He relocates his thumb.
Make another survival check for me.
14.
It pops back in just as painfully.
Oh, that'll wake you up better than your mama's coffee. And Jeremiah begins to untie Ember's bonds.
Both of you are now free inside the shed.
Did you happen to see where they put our weapons?
I didn't see a fucking thing.
A little voice suddenly pipes up from the corner of the room. And in the very dark corner, you see, reflecting in the moonlight, 2 chains and 2 arms, as if they're being held up in a medieval dungeon, padlocked to the wall.
I know where they keep the weapons.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
That voice comes completely from within the shadows. You cannot see the face that it came from yet.
Apologies for startling you, sir. I'd have made myself known sooner, but I didn't want to invoke his wrath.
Oh my god, how long have you been there?
Well, I'd say nigh on a month now.
A month?
Oh my god, well let's try to get you out of there.
Wait a minute, Ember. We don't know high or low of who this sumbitch is. Why did you not declare yourself sooner, sir? We've been here for a fucking while.
Like I said, sir, I wasn't too keen on making myself known to him, even though I've been here quite some time. I think he may have forgotten about me. Been about a week since I've been fed, and 3 days since anyone's been in here. Last I saw them, they were in here to get Eric.
Okay, that's a can of worms we just don't have time to open right now. If you tell us where our weapons are, maybe we can see what we can do about getting you out of here.
Well, given the semi-nomadic nature of this band of undesirables, it's easy to get more twisted up than a rattler in a box of yarn round the camp. But if you help to liberate me from my here tether, I can help you find their impound. Not only are your weapons there, but they've also got some of mine. And the little man nods to where his left leg should be. There's a well-healed stump there. It's clear that this is an injury from a long time ago. There's no sort of peg or false leg, but there is a strap where one is supposed to be hooked on.
Well, pardon me, sir, but how the fuck are we supposed to get you around the camp, all stealthily like without your fucking leg?
As you move around and see him in slightly better light, you start to see his face a little more.
The little man is easily under 5'5". He's probably closer to 4'11", 5 feet even. He's got a big, bushy, white sort of prospector beard, and on the ground next to him is a floppy old brown hat. He wears a pair of overalls with long johns poking out underneath. He grins at Jeremiah. Well, friend, I weigh about 120 pounds soaking wet, and once you get me to their impound and I got my leg back, I should be able to move around on my own accord, no problem.
Well, I don't know, Jeremiah, do you feel like you're a bit too past your prime to carry him around?
Past my prime, Miss Ember? Well, hell no. But even in my best days, I was not wont to carry around scrawny old coots. And I don't appreciate your fucking tone.
Fine, I'll fucking do it. And Ember goes over to try to look at what's holding him to the wall.
Looks like a couple of padlocks and big thick chains, but the padlocks are big and kind of antique looking. Looks like they might be easily pickable.
Jeremiah searches the interior of the shed for tools of any kind to pick the lock.
Can you roll an investigation check for me, please?
9.
You're unable to find anything.
Ember goes to look in a different corner than Jeremiah.
Roll an investigation check for me.
10.
When Ember goes over to the other side of the shed, she finds what she's looking for, but also a little more than she bargained for. In the corner of the room, there is a big pile of ties. A little bit to the right of that, there's a big pile of bolos. Then next to that, bow ties. And just to the right of that, a pile of women's hairpins.
If anyone wants a wardrobe change too, this would be the place to do it.
Jeremiah walks over and takes a gander at those ties.
Excuse me, sir? You won't want to be touching those ties.
Well, why not?
Rather not say.
I'm gonna go ahead and touch them. Jeremiah reaches for the shiniest one he can see.
It's sort of like a golden silk tie.
Well, don't mind if I do. And he picks it up.
A little bit of hair falls off the tie.
Jeremiah brushes the hair off and puts it on.
And it looks great.
He turns around to the other two occupants of the room. What? I have been wearing this outfit for 48 hours. I needed a change.
Well, forget what I said. You look smarter than a school teacher at a reading contest.
Sir, flattery will get you everywhere. Why don't you allow me? And Jeremiah takes one of the hairpins from Ember's hand and picks the lock. 22.
It comes right open.
Well, now that my hands are free for shaking, I think introductions are in order. Sir, madam, it's a pleasure to meet y'all. My name is Erasmus Jessup Lindsay Stillman. But to those that have tasted my cheddar and bacon pie, I'm called Skillet, and that seems to be less of a mouthful. And the little man extends his hand for a handshake.
Erasmus Jessup Lindsay Stillman. Nice to meet you, sir. I'm Jeremiah Finch.
I knew it, sir. He shakes Jeremiah's hand with vigor uncharacteristic of someone so small.
Ember walks over, presents her hand. I'm Ember, and while this is nice, frankly, I don't think we've ever had less time to go about such pleasantries. I think it's time to go save my brother, don't you?
Enchanté, and I couldn't agree more. Mr. Finch, if you don't mind. And the little man puts his arms up like a child ready to be carried.
Hi everybody, this is George from Hero Club, once again interrupting the episode just very quickly to once again say thank you guys so much for listening to Season 3 of Hero Club. This is Episode 2. We're looking forward to bringing you a lot of super special guests this season and a lot of extra special content, especially that from Mage Hand Press. Our friends over at Mage Hand Press have given us free reign over their Weird West handbook. If you want to take your D&D party to a Wild West setting, this is the book that'll take you there. And it's available in PDF form on their website at www.magehandpress.com. And if you use the discount code ADVERSARY, spelled ADVERSARY, you'll get 20% off. That's pretty cool. Also, pay special attention to their Kickstarter, which you can also find on their website. These guys are trying to raise some money to put together a 200-page supplement to D&D 5th edition, including exclusively space material. And I, for one, am definitely looking forward to it. We've got some stuff planned on the horizon. Finally, make sure you follow us on all of our social media at Hero Club Podcast. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or check out our website, www.heroclubpodcast.com. On all of those, you're going to find really awesome exclusive content, fun clips, bloopers from recording, libraries of Marty's artwork. It goes on and on. All right, let's go back to the episode and see how they get out of this one. While that's happening, Elias, thrown over Trunk's shoulder, is desperately trying to quell his shaking as Trunk takes lengthy strides in the marsh. Trunk's feet eventually begin to emit a little splashing noise as it gets wetter and wetter, and suddenly you realize that you're moving to the bank of the actual swamp itself. Elias, as you look up over his shoulder, you start to see people nailed to trees with railroad spikes. And these people are so carved up that you can barely recognize their faces. Intricate drawings depict demonic imagery on torsos, stretching all the way to arms. There are several people who are lined up with their backs facing outward from the tree, and a mural has been carved across 3 of them. This demented art gallery gets more and more elaborate, more and more populated as you get closer to the edge of the water. You get to a small arena that's been set up with a table full of cutlery, another table with several oil lamps that Trunk promptly begins to place in a circle around a big post, complete with leg and arm straps. The moonlight shines directly down onto this post, and Trunk slaps you down onto it and begins strapping you in.
So you're a man of God?
Yes, I am. Are you a man, sir?
I'll be the one asking the questions. You ever do manual labor?
Of course.
You ever cut a trunk of a tree?
Many times.
Have you ever carved the bark off of a tree trunk?
I've been known to make my crosses in my day.
You see, my favorite part of carving the bark off a tree is that every trunk has a different skin. And behind each skin, a different age, a different flesh. Look around you. Every piece is different. Every arm, every back, every torso, every foot, and every face. Now you have become part of my collection. Consider yourself honored.
Trunk takes the point of a buck knife that he pulls off the table, rests it on Elias's shoulder, and just begins to pull it downward, peeling flesh as he pulls. Can you make a constitution save for me?
15.
Elias, do you mask how much it hurts?
Elias grits his teeth and looks directly into Trunk's eyes. You know, your collection is not as unique as you might think. Underneath all this skin, we're all the same in the eyes of the Lord.
Trunk appears to be listening to this, but continues to carve, and you continue to grit your teeth through the pain, masking just how painful it is.
Through the pain, Elias's face once again goes cold. You seem to be having fun, but I want to know why you do what you do. Confess your sins to me.
20 on the wisdom save?
I don't owe you a thing.
Confess your sins to me.
15 on the wisdom save.
That fails.
Trunk immediately drops to his knees. The knife clatters to the ground. His head drops. He braces himself, holding either side of the post that you are strapped to. His shoulders begin to shake, and his head pops up, eyes wide, and begins to confess his sins to you.
My sins? I've cut so many bodies I've lost count. But it's not out of enjoyment, and it's not out of happiness. It's to stop my suffering. I'm an artist, and they're my canvas. Their life means nothing to me, just as I mean nothing to them. And I look at you, and I feel nothing but a spark of creativity.
We cut back to Jeremiah, Ember, and Skillet, all piled on top of one of the carved men from before, choking him out in tandem.
That's what you get for touching me while I'm in my slumber, you son of a bitch.
Ember's taking his knife and slowly cutting into his stomach and arms, saying, "Now you're gonna match us, you son of a bitch."
That's the spirit, Miss Ember. Cover him up nice and good like. Jeremiah slaps his forehead. Wake up! I need you to tell me where the weapon shed is.
And as he asks, Ember presses her knife slowly deeper into the man's abdomen.
You are making me so much more beautiful than I was before.
Skillet pushes Ember's hand, forcing the knife into the man's abdomen.
I said I can't take any more sheer pleasure. I'll tell you whatever you want.
You can see the man reach down to grab the knife and actually begins to insert it deeper himself.
Oh, now we will have none of that, sir. Jeremiah yanks the knife back out. Tell us where the weapons are.
The man weakly points to a shed about 100 yards out and then weakly begins to pass out from blood loss.
Yep, that'll be the one. Thank you kindly, sir.
And Ember grabs the knife out of Jeremiah's hands and slits the man's throat.
Jeremiah drags the body into a nearby bush and stashes it before picking Skillet back up over his shoulder and motioning for them to head towards the aforementioned shed.
As you take off towards this other shed, you make a mental note of some oil lamps stationary in the distance towards the water's edge, continue towards the shed, reach the door.
Ember goes over to peek through one of the windows.
You see a massive pile of guns, big suitcases, a couple of chests, even a safe from a bank just stashed in this shed.
Ooh, this'll be like Christmas for you, Jerry.
Après-vous, mon ami.
Whatever that means. And Ember opens the door.
The door swings open. You see all of your belongings pretty much fresh at the top of the pile.
Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to grab my legs so I can stop imposing, Mr. Finch. Would you mind holding me up so I can reach it?
Jeremiah lifts up the little prospector as if he's a child to grab the leg.
Skillet reaches up, grabbing a wooden leg with leather straps on it and a jet black iron frying pan. Thank you kindly, sir.
Jeremiah deposits Skillet on the ground to put his leg on and heads towards his own weapons.
Ember is already at the pile rifling through weapons. She's already located and picked up her silvered throwing crosses and has now come across her most valued possession, her sword. When sheathed, it appears to be a regular longsword, but as Ember removes it, she splits it into two. She flourishes them both around her before sheathing them again and attaching them to her side. With as much fervor as Jeremiah picking out a new tie, Ember reaches down and picks up a derringer in an ankle sheath, a sawed-off shotgun, and a Pinkerton's early version of a bulletproof vest.
Jeremiah completely ignores all the bric-a-brac around him and makes a beeline directly for his guns. Oh, ladies, I missed ya. Let's never part ways again. And he kisses them each before flourishing them and reholstering them on his person.
Skillet picks up a large blunderbuss and looks at it with the same affection that Jeremiah looked at his pistols, and grabs a big handful of coins and nails and whatever other pieces of metal are around the cache and just shoves them into the barrel of the gun. Grabs a few more handfuls, puts them in his pockets, and then picks up a small flask-sized bottle of whiskey and calls out to Jeremiah, "Excuse me, Mr. Finch, I don't think you'll want to be going anywhere without this." The whiskey is clearly some nice small batch, some high-end stuff.
I think this is gonna be the beginning of a very beautiful friendship. And Jeremiah takes a hearty pull from the bottle before extending the courtesy to Ember.
Ember receives the bottle, takes a quick swig, and then passes it back to Skillet.
Well, color me enthused. And Skillet takes a big pull on the bottle before screwing it shut and handing it back to Jeremiah.
Miss Ember, though my knowledge of your brother is limited, I would say that we should probably try to get to him sooner rather than later.
Those oil lamps we saw, that's where we'll want to head. Faster than a bear heading towards his cave in winter, too.
Well, why don't you honor us by taking point with your fancified new leg, sir?
Well, it would be my pleasure, Mr. Finch. And Skillet hop-skips out the door of the shed.
As the other two head out, Ember looks down and finds her compass on the ground. She picks it up before following the others.
You see that the wavering needle is pointing off in the direction that the other two have headed in, towards the oil lamps. Elias, Trunk has finally finished rattling off his sins. The duration of your spell has ended. He shakes his head sort of funnily, looks up at you, and smirks a knowing smirk as he figures out just what you've done.
Trunk lifts his arm and grabs Elias by the neck, slowly pressing his thumb into his Adam's apple.
Pretty slick, but now it's my turn.
Trunk presses down until Elias can barely breathe. One of the carved men behind him begins to cackle. Just as he closes Elias's windpipe, he stops and turns.
Why are you laughing?
Oh no, sir. I wasn't laughing at the you or the situation. I was just laughing about something that I was thinking about earlier. You are all great and powerful, sir.
Trunk walks over to the man, grabs him by the top of his skull, and crushes his head. He turns back to Elias with a smile on his face and blood dripping off of his fingers. He rips the skull off of its corpse and calls for Samson.
Come here, boy.
Samson leaps from the water and drags the body back into the marsh.
So, you've confessed your sins to God. Vanity. That's your sin, isn't it? The love of beauty has twisted your soul. You're beyond saving.
Jeremiah, Ember, and Skillet finally reach the perimeter of these oil lamps. They see Trunk crush the skull of one of his little minions. They see Samson leap out of the water, dragging the body back into the marsh. And they hear Elias's words as they creep up towards the edge.
Jeremiah points out the table covered in cutlery. Why don't you two get over to cover over there and wait for my shot while I flank him from the left? Once I open fire, I expect you to do the same in kind. Do you understand?
Ember gives a curt nod and looks over to Skillet.
We're gonna have to hit him real fast and real hard. He's gonna be madder than a bull that just found out he's a cow.
Fast and hard it is. And Jeremiah creeps off to the left.
Can everybody make stealth checks for me, please?
16.
14.
14.
All of you are able to position yourselves effectively, and Trunk doesn't turn to address you. Elias, over Trunk's shoulder, you see 3 shapes moving through the bushes. As they move, you start to see little hats poke up over the brush, familiar hats owned by Ember and Jeremiah, and one unfamiliar one, but you notice them position themselves in a flanking formation.
Well, sir, if this is your choice, you better get to work. I'm fixing to be your masterpiece.
Trunk gives a big sigh, walks over to one of the tables with all the knives on it splayed out, picks up a particularly nasty-looking curved one, makes his way back over to Elias, stares into his eyes,
God is my witness,
and stabs the blade into his chest. Take 3 damage as Trunk begins to carve into your chest.
As soon as the blade enters Elias's chest, Jeremiah takes his shot.
Roll your attack with advantage.
18.
That's a hit.
And he's going to expend a risk die to shoot the knife out of Trunk's hand.
The bullet rips through Trunk's hand, the knife goes flying off into the swamp, and Trunk turns his head with a snap.
I wouldn't have done that if I were you.
Jeremiah takes his second shot. 21.
Hit. Roll damage.
10 damage.
The bullet slams into Trunk's chest meat, but you can see that it doesn't pass all the way through. And even though Trunk recoils, he seems to kind of shrug it off.
Now would be a good time.
Running from the shadows, Ember grabs an oil lamp as she passes by, hurling it towards Trunk's abdomen. 12.
The oil lamp shatters on the ground around Trunk, and the ground does catch fire, but he immediately sidesteps it and turns to face you.
Whoops.
Skillet has not broken step and runs ahead to the table with the knives on it, which he tips over to turn into a barricade.
The knives make a big metal clatter as they fly off the table. Trunk, having sidestepped the blaze, gives a little whistle. Out pokes Samson's monstrous head, and he leaps forward, shakes the water off of his giant mangy coat. The fire is extinguished. He sniffs the air for a moment and looks off into the bushes to the left of Jeremiah, and the air resonates with a deep, menacing growl. But that growl is answered by a slightly higher-pitched growl.
Old Blue!
Old Blue shoots into the clearing and immediately makes for Samson's heels. Samson appears very off-put and tries to avoid the bloodhound that's now nibbling at his feet and appears very distracted.
Elias, seeing his allies rush into the field, looks at Samson, and suddenly that cold fever takes over him again. You do not belong here. Attempts to banish him back to hell.
14. Samson, just about to lunge into the trees after sort of booting Old Blue to the side. opens his maw to reveal giant needle-like teeth as Elias begins chanting under his breath a language he doesn't even know. And as the mouth opens wide to take Elias's head in its jaws, the ground cracks below him. The demon dog, surprised, sits back, cocks its head, looks at the ground, and begins to panic, shuffling its feet back and forth. The crack explodes open. The dog's legs splay outward, spread eagle. It gives one last lunge trying to keep itself above ground, and then ultimately falls into the pit with a howl. A flare of lava seems to shoot out of the crevice, and then the earth seals itself up immediately. Trunk turns around, and for the first time, bellows in a rage.
That was my dog!
Trunk whips around to Elias, hands reaching for his neck.
Ember runs up to Trunk, unsheathing and separating her long swords as she attacks him from the rear.
Roll your attacks.
26.
That's a hit, and your second attack?
14.
That is a miss, so you do hit him once though. Roll your damage.
12.
One of the swords catches and peels open a big cut across Trunk's back. Trunk, having sort of moved into a more upright posture with the tugging down of the blades, cracks his neck for a moment. His head maintains position at a cocked angle, and then he very abruptly hunches over, begins to hyperventilate, and when he straightens himself back up, his eyes are bloodshot, he is slobbering, and seems incapable of any speech.
With his left hand, he grabs the post above Elias's head. His mangled nails and giant fist lunge into Elias's body.
20 versus AC.
Hits.
23 damage. The fist slams into Elias's stomach. Elias emits a giant wheeze as the air is shoved from his lungs. And suddenly, an image flashes before his eyes. Samson, burning in the fires of hell, snapping forward. Elias has to now make a concentration check to maintain his banishment of Samson the demon dog.
Elias maintains concentration.
Skillet pops up from behind the table, levels his blunderbuss, and squeezes a shot off at Trunk.
Ember and Trunk are both going to make dexterity saves to avoid the shrapnel. If Trunk succeeds, Elias is going to take the damage.
9.
Trunk rolls a 20. Trunk picks Ember up, as if sensing the gun going off, and uses her as a human shield. Meanwhile, stepping out of the way, both Elias and Ember take shrapnel right to the face. You both take 10 damage.
Aw shit, Padre, Miss Ember, I am the worst kinda sorry.
You were better with one leg!
Jeremiah sheaths his rifle and unholsters his Colt Navy revolver, Jezebel, and steps out of the shadows, taking shots as he does. Critical hit. 22 damage, and he's gonna shoot again. 17.
That is a hit.
8 damage. As Jeremiah steps out, raising his pistol, he lets loose a cry of, "Taste hot lead, you ugly Cro-Magnon son of a bitch!" and nails Trunk right between the eyes with the first shot, and then follows it up with a shot to his shoulder.
The bullet entering Trunk's head sort of stops halfway, but Trunk's eyes go bleary and he begins to blink a lot as he tries to feel around for what just penetrated his skull.
Then, with renewed fury, Jeremiah fans the hammer on his pistol and shoots 3 times with disadvantage. 14, 21, 20.
The first bullet enters the dirt next to Trunk's legs,
And the second and third bullets nail Trunk right in the stomach for 22 damage.
You can see that the bullets aren't making their way all the way through Trunk's body. They're really getting lodged inside of his fat and muscle that just covers him. But he's losing a lot of blood, and his hyperventilating is turning from fury to desperation.
Hanging from the post, bloodied and tattered, Elias begins to pray, and the cross around his neck begins to glow. And then a spectral form of a giant cross appears in front of him as he casts spiritual weapon, and it slams right into Trunk's face. 20.
That's a hit.
17 points of force damage.
Trunk's nose breaks.
From Elias's tied hands emits a golden holy light as it flashes forward into a guiding bolt directly at Trunk's chest. 19.
That's a hit.
12 radiant damage.
The skin on Trunk's chest begins to bubble and blister as the light fires through him.
Ember takes the sawed-off shotgun and levels it at Trunk's face. pulling the trigger.
Because Trunk is still fingering around for the bullet lodged in his skull, desperately trying to stand up but unable to find his balance, that's going to be treated as a coup de grace, so that'll do 24 damage as half of Trunk's face just shreds off his body. Trunk turns to face Ember. He doesn't appear to be in any pain, but he makes a calm, direct eye contact with Ember.
As a free action, Skillet pulls out his chewing tobacco from his overall pocket and pops some into his mouth. Then he runs up to Trunk and whacks him in the head with his frying pan.
Roll an attack with advantage.
19.
That's a hit. That's going to be 10 damage.
Jeremiah slowly walks up to Trunk until he's staring him right in the eye and says, "We've got a dog of our own," and whistles for Old Blue. Sick 'em, Blue.
Old Blue barrels towards Trunk. Trunk looks up. He immediately seems to calm down and sort of come to his senses. Right before the dog impacts,
Samson.
Old Blue launches into him, knocks him backwards onto his back, and tears his throat out right away. Shakes his fur, sits next to Trunk's head, and begins to pant with a big, dopey smile.
Now that's a good boy.
Trunk bleeds out into the dirt, his eyelids fluttering, blood gurgling up over his bottom lip. He makes direct eye contact with Elias, weakly smiles, and coughs.
He was right. You're gonna be great.
And he dies.
Ember goes over to Elias and starts untying him from the post.
You see carved into Elias's chest the first part of a, quote, beautiful, unquote, mural that Trunk was beginning. Over his sternum, a crude sun has been carved, and just above his right kidney, a pentagram.
Elias gingerly touches each wound, winces, and as he touches his blood, he casts Cure Wounds in hope that these carvings will go away.
The skin heals, but a very faint scar does remain on Elias's skin, just a slight discoloration.
Would you mind doing that to my arms too? I only want to have one scar.
Elias pulls Ember into a hug and begins to pray, casting Cure Wounds on her as well.
The same thing happens.
Well, I owe you an apology, sir. I don't know how you do what you do with your hands, but fuck me if it wasn't special. And he reaches out his hand for a handshake.
Elias, exhausted, reciprocates the handshake. "Oh, Mr. Finch, you know how I did it. And one day, you'll believe."
Say, you wouldn't happen to know how to grow back a man's leg, would you?
"Well, sir, I know how I do it, but I don't know how I do it, if you understand. Also, who is this?"
The name's Erasmus Jessup Lindsay Stillman, but to those who have tried my cheddar and bacon pie, I go by Skillet. Which, by the way, it's about high time y'all tried that. What say we go raid this fool's larder?
Skillet, without waiting for a response, rushes back into one of the sheds, and you just hear loud rummaging around and a couple of exclamations as he finds certain things he needs for his cheddar and bacon pie.
Well, you two, I don't rightly know what I've seen the last couple of days, and I sure as hell don't know if I believe what you've been spouting, sir. But I do believe in getting my fucking what for. Let's bring the fight back to that bottom-feeding sidewinder. Nobody calls me corny and lives to tell the tale. I mean, corny? Are you fucking kidding me, corny? Sesquipedalian? Sure, I'll grant you that. But corny, that son of a bitch, I'm gonna stick my barrel so far down his throat.
Well, tarnation, we're in business. Skillet comes hobble running out of the shed he just entered with a big wheel of cheese under one arm and dragging a quartered hog on a piece of cheesecloth in the other hand. I'll have these here divined up into a pie in no time. You'll see.
With all due respect, Skillet, I cannot think of a worse time or place to make one of your delicious pies. I say we get the fuck out of here while we still can.
Oh, I second that notion.
Well, now, hold on. As our leader, I guess I'll have the final say. And I say we get out of here.
Well, you certainly are a bellwether of your fucking field. You're fucking welcome for saving your wimpy ass.
Excuse you saving goddamn ass. I think I had a bit more to do with that than
Oh,
you did.
really? Oh, really? Do you not see a bullet in this man's forehead? Or the final blow done by my bloodhound, Old Blue?
I see a stroke of luck surrounded by my beautiful work from my sawed-off shotgun.
Look, you did some fine work with that sawed-off shotgun, but it hardly shouts finesse. You just pointed a shotgun
I was
into the
just
face
attempting
of a
to
man
make
who
a
was holding
joke.
you in
Did that
his
not?
hand.
Because I was close
Was
enough
that
to get
not
to his face and was
clear?
cowering back
Elias
against them.
lightly jogs
Yellow
after
belly
them.
weasel.
You two, God was the one who saved us all. It was God's doing. Pride is not what we need right now.
The trio makes its way towards the cart that they were brought in on and begins loading it with supplies. Eventually, in a little stable about 100 yards away, they find their steeds saddled up as if waiting for them. They hitch everybody up and begin to set out of the swamp. Skillet sits on the back of the cart next to Old Blue, scratching his ears.
Lightbringer, Lightbringer, turn away, you great deceiver. Lightbringer.
This has been a Hero Club production. Produced by Nick Williams and George Primavera, with associate producers Marty Abby Schneider and Dylan McCollum. Voice acting by George Primavera, Nick Williams, Hannah Fagerbaki, Dylan McCollum, Marcos Gonzalez, and Marty Abby Schneider. Theme song written by Matthew McCollum and performed by Hannah Fagerbaki. Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod for his music, Nolan North for that badass intro, and to Marty Abby Schneider for his incredible artwork. Thanks for listening, and welcome to the club.
I want you where I moved ya. I mold ya, I improved ya. You think you're quick, you think you're wise.
Think you're on my level,
Let's roll them dice.
You are making me so... That's a British. You are making me so horny.
I'm aroused and confused.